Welcome to the Daily Buddha Dharma channel. In today's video, we'll be exploring one of the most profound and wondrous concepts in Buddhism, consciousness only, or Vijñanavada. This is a subtle philosophical system that explains how consciousness and perception create the world around us. Join me as we delve into the core principles, the types of consciousness, and the goals of practice within the consciousness-only school, to gain a deeper understanding of the path to enlightenment and liberation. Let's jump right in. First, the foundational principles of consciousness only. In Buddhism, the consciousness-only theory is a distinctive doctrine that aims to explain the nature of the world and human perception. Specifically, the basic principle of consciousness only asserts that all phenomena and objects lack inherent fixed substance. They are merely manifestations arising from consciousness. This is a core concept. Consciousness, in the consciousness-only school, is considered the foundation for perceiving and experiencing the world around us. All things, whether material or mental, exist and have meaning only when they are recognized and differentiated by consciousness. In our everyday world, we can easily recognize the existence of objects and phenomena through our senses like sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. However, according to consciousness-only theory, everything we perceive through our senses is not objective truth but merely illusions created by consciousness. We see, hear, smell, taste, and feel this world through the filters of consciousness. And it is consciousness itself that creates the images, sounds, smells, and feelings that we consider real. Everything we consider reality is just phenomena shaped, interpreted, and reflected by consciousness. According to consciousness only, dharmas, meaning all phenomena in the world, lack self-nature, i.e., they have no fixed essence or independent substance outside of consciousness. The phenomena we see or experience are not independent entities, rather, they depend on consciousness for their existence. They are the result of interactions between different elements, which in turn are governed by factors within consciousness. Therefore, the world is not a fixed entity but a manifestation of continuous changes, reactions within our consciousness. The transformation of phenomena is not a change in objective reality but a change in the way consciousness perceives and differentiates. A classic example of consciousness-only theory is seeing a tree. In reality, the tree is not an independent entity existing outside of our consciousness. The tree is merely a phenomenon created in our consciousness through the sense of sight. The image of the tree appears in consciousness when light reflected from the tree enters the eye and is processed by the brain. However, without perception from consciousness, the tree cannot exist. The tree exists only when it is recognized and differentiated through our consciousness. This does not mean that the tree has no existence at all, but rather that the tree's existence depends on how our consciousness differentiates and constructs it. Without consciousness, the tree cannot exist in the way we see and know it. Therefore, dharmas lack self-nature, have no permanent substance, but are always changing and exist only in relation to consciousness. In addition, consciousness-only theory also emphasizes that the existence of dharmas is not accidental. They depend on dependent origination, pratityasamutpada. Dependent origination is the principle that all things and phenomena have specific causes and conditions for their existence. Nothing exists independently, rather, Everything is interconnected. The change of one phenomenon will create a change in another. This reflects a relative world where everything is the result of dependent origination. It is precisely because of conditions that consciousness can create the images. The things we perceive, without conditions, these things could not exist. Because all dharmas lack self-nature and are products of dependent origination and consciousness. The nature of this world cannot be grasped in a fixed way. The world is always changing and cannot be imprisoned in rigid concepts or notions. Therefore, according to consciousness only, the world is not an objective reality but a subjective phenomenon created and governed by consciousness. When we realize that the world is a combination of consciousness and dependent origination, we will no longer cling to phenomena, no longer assume that they are fixed or immutable. We will understand that everything is just part of the flow of impermanence. And that change is the nature of all things. Therefore, the basic principle of consciousness only is not just a philosophy of perception but also a path of practice that helps people understand the nature of the world and achieve liberation from attachments. From bondage to the material world. When people realize that the world is just an illusion created by consciousness, they will no longer cling to phenomena, no longer suffer from losses or changes in life. True liberation comes from realizing that the nature of all things is unreal, unfixed, and that we do not need to cling to anything. In practice, consciousness only advises practitioners to practice transforming consciousness, i.e., transforming the mind to realize that all things are created by consciousness. The goal of this transformation is to help us reach a state of pure consciousness, in which we are no longer caught up in differentiation, no longer seeing the world through the lens of subjectivity and deluded thoughts. When consciousness is purified, we will see the nature of the world clearly, understand that all things are impermanent existences, and from that, live in peace, unconstrained by attachments and suffering. Second, the 8 types of consciousness. In the consciousness-only system, human consciousness is divided into 8 types. Each has a distinct role and function in perceiving and responding to the world. The first 4 of the 8 are the sense consciousnesses, which help us recognize and interact with the external world. However, these are just the means by which consciousness creates phenomena, not the actual nature of things. The remaining 3 consciousnesses, including the mind consciousness, the manas consciousness, and the alaya consciousness, play not only an important role in perceiving but also in storing and generating psychological phenomena, forming the ego and the karmic actions of humans. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, and body consciousness are the 5 basic sense consciousnesses in the consciousness-only system. These are the mechanisms for receiving influences from the external environment through our senses. Each sense consciousness has a function of recognizing a particular type of sensation, helping us sense and distinguish phenomena in the world. Eye consciousness is the consciousness that recognizes images, colors, and shapes through the sense of sight. When light from the external world shines into the eye, the images of the world are recorded and transformed into information in eye consciousness, thereby creating impressions of colors, shapes, and visual details of things. Ear consciousness plays a role in recognizing sounds through the sense of hearing. Sounds from the external world, through the vibration of the air, enter the ear and are transformed into auditory sensations in ear consciousness. Thanks to ear consciousness, we can distinguish different sounds from speech to noise. Nose consciousness is the consciousness that recognizes smells through the sense of smell. The smell of objects, from food to other odors in the environment, is detected through nose consciousness and affects our emotions and moods. Tongue consciousness is responsible for perceiving tastes through the sense of taste. When substances from the external world come into contact with the tongue, tongue consciousness creates a sensation of sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, or umami. This sensation is not only related to nutrition but also directly affects human emotions. Body consciousness is the consciousness that recognizes tactile sensations through the body. Sensations of temperature, hardness, softness, pain, or pleasure are recorded by body consciousness. Thanks to body consciousness, we can feel the changes in the physical environment around us. Although these 5 sense consciousnesses are important tools for receiving information from the external world, they are only tools for reception, not the absolute truth about things. All sensations and impressions we have from the senses are expressions of consciousness, which are arranged and classified by the mind. Mind consciousness is the 6th consciousness in the system of 8. Mind consciousness plays a role in differentiating, thinking, and reasoning. When the 5 sense consciousnesses recognize and record information from the external world, mind consciousness analyzes, synthesizes, and makes observations and judgments about what the sense consciousnesses have received. This is the consciousness that has the ability to differentiate phenomena, connect past experiences with concepts, thoughts, and theories. Mind consciousness helps us build concepts, theories, and make decisions based on reasoning. However, like all other consciousnesses, mind consciousness is not an independent entity but merely an element dependent on dependent origination and the transformations of consciousness. Mind consciousness can create accurate sensations but can also cause delusions and incorrect differentiation if it is not purified and clear. Therefore, mind consciousness is also part of our attachments if it is not practiced and controlled. Manas consciousness is the 7th consciousness in the consciousness-only system. Manas consciousness has the primary function of self-clinging, i.e., clinging to the ego. This consciousness plays an important role in creating the ego, the self. In each person's perception, Manas consciousness acts like a reflection, in which we not only perceive the external world but also perceive ourselves, forming concepts of me, the ego, mine. It is this Manas consciousness that makes us feel that we are a separate individual independent of the world around us. Manas consciousness is the place where concepts of the self and what belongs to the self are stored. Whenever there is a feeling of joy, sadness, or pain, Manas consciousness will reflect those feelings through the ego, making us unable to separate ourselves from our personal emotions and therefore easily fall into a state of ego clinging. Clinging to our own ego. This is also the origin of suffering because the ego is what we cling to and consider the most important. Even though it is just an illusion, an incorrect perception, Alaya consciousness is the 8th consciousness, considered the basis and also the storehouse of all seeds, the karmic seeds of humans. Alaya consciousness stores all memories, experiences, actions, and conditions from the past. from previous lives to the present. All our actions, thoughts, and feelings during life are recorded in alaya consciousness in the form of seeds. These seeds will sprout and develop into phenomena in life, creating conditions leading to different results. Alaya consciousness not only stores memories in one life but also has the ability to accumulate karmic actions from previous lives, creating a chain of cause and effect throughout. These seeds can bring influences in the present and future, creating tendencies and actions. When these seeds are affected by external factors, they will generate phenomena or actions. Alaya consciousness also plays an important role in rebirth because it contains all the necessary karmic information to create a new life in future lives. It is alaya consciousness that stores the causes of suffering as well as happiness in life. And it is also where we can practice transforming karma, liberating ourselves from rebirth and suffering. Third, the goals of consciousness-only practice. In the consciousness-only doctrine, the goal of practice is not simply to improve our awareness of the world but is a profound process of transformation in the human mind, thereby achieving enlightenment and liberation. This so-called transformation is a shift from a state of perception full of illusions and attachments to a state of pure and clear wisdom. To achieve this goal, the practitioner must go through a process of transformation from the coarse consciousnesses to the transcendental wisdoms. This transformation is not just a change in the way we perceive but also a profound change in the nature of consciousness. The process of consciousness-only practice aims to transform the 8 consciousnesses into 4 superior wisdoms. This is a process of refinement from an ordinary consciousness that only reflects illusions and deluded thoughts into a pure wisdom that is no longer misled and differentiated. These 4 wisdoms are not things that are available in consciousness but are virtues that the practitioner can achieve through cultivation and purification of the mind. Each consciousness has a corresponding wisdom that helps the practitioner embody the true nature of all things. Transforming alaya consciousness into the great mirror wisdom. Alaya consciousness is the storehouse of all seeds and karmic seeds. However, when this consciousness is transformed into the great mirror wisdom, it is no longer a storehouse of karmic force but becomes a vast and pure wisdom. The great mirror wisdom is the wisdom that sees all phenomena clearly without being hindered by discriminations, concepts, or deluded thoughts. When alaya consciousness is transformed, it becomes a vast space where everything is seen with equality, without differentiation. This is the state of wisdom that is completely clear, no longer attached to the forms and expressions of the world. The practitioner, upon attaining the great mirror wisdom, can realize that all phenomena are transformations of consciousness and have no separate entity. Transforming Mana's consciousness into equality wisdom. Mana's consciousness is the self-clinging consciousness, where we form the ego and concepts of self. When this consciousness is transformed into equality wisdom, it no longer clings to the ego or personal discriminations. Equality wisdom is the wisdom that sees all things and phenomena in the world without differentiating or classifying. This is the wisdom that recognizes everything equally, without dividing between self and others, between right and wrong, between good and bad. This wisdom helps the practitioner overcome discrimination, thereby no longer being dragged along by feelings and thoughts about the self. Upon attaining equality wisdom, We will no longer be suffering from pain and afflictions due to antagonistic or discriminatory relationships. Transforming mind consciousness into the wisdom of wonderful observation, mind consciousness. The sixth consciousness is the consciousness that has the ability to differentiate and reason. However, when this consciousness is transformed into the wisdom of wonderful observation, it no longer operates in superficial discriminations but becomes a wisdom that has the ability to observe clearly, directly, and without attachment. The wisdom of wonderful observation is the wisdom that helps the practitioner observe phenomena and things deeply, seeing their nature clearly without being affected by ideas and biases. This is the wisdom of mindfulness, no longer obscured by delusions and illusions. Upon attaining the wisdom of wonderful observation, the practitioner can understand the nature of all dharmas and from that can act correctly without error or deviation, transforming the five sense consciousnesses into the wisdom of accomplishing activities. The five sense consciousnesses are those that help us receive information from the external world. However, when they are transformed into the wisdom of accomplishing activities, they are no longer the crude senses but become tools of enlightenment that help the practitioner perform the functions of awareness correctly. The wisdom of accomplishing activities is the wisdom that performs the functions of enlightenment correctly, i.e., using the senses to perceive and act correctly, without being attached to images, sounds, smells, tastes, or feelings. Upon attaining the wisdom of accomplishing activities, the practitioner will no longer be bound by feelings but will see everything clearly and accurately, performing actions that benefit themselves and all beings. An important goal in consciousness-only practice is to liberate oneself from ignorance, i.e., to sever the delusions, attachments, and illusions about the nature of the world. Ignorance is the root of all afflictions and suffering in life because when we do not perceive the reality correctly, we will be caught up in desires, fears, cravings, and attachments. These delusions make it impossible for us to see the nature of dharmas clearly and lead to suffering. Liberating oneself from ignorance means that the practitioner must realize that all phenomena are impermanent and have no fixed entity. In reality, everything is just a transformation of consciousness. There is no real self or ego. By no longer clinging to delusions and concepts, the practitioner will liberate themselves from delusion, thereby achieving self-mastery and peace. Severing ignorance is not about eliminating all thoughts but is about realizing that all thoughts and feelings are just phenomena created by consciousness and have no eternal or real existence. Perfect enlightenment in consciousness only means that the practitioner completely understands that everything is just a manifestation of consciousness. Upon attaining perfect enlightenment, we will realize that the world around us, all things, and phenomena are just manifestations created by consciousness. From that, we are no longer caught up in illusions about the ego, about the material world, or about the differentiation between phenomena. Perfect enlightenment is not only the realization of the nature of all things but also the combination of deep understanding and correct action. Having understood the nature of consciousness, the practitioner will no longer be suffering from pain and ignorance. They will live a self-possessed life, unaffected by external influences, and always maintain a clear and pure mind. Perfect enlightenment is the end of all suffering. It is the state of complete freedom and liberation.